Hi there. Microfocus is extremely delighted to partner with the Digital India Leadership Initiative of Coeus Age. As part of this continuous program, we shall invite some very prominent personalities from the technology domain in the government and public sector segments and listen to their perspectives about how they overcame a lot of challenges and how they also imparted technology for better use for the services for the citizens and for their own organizations. In the first of these sessions, we are pleased to invite Mr. Sharat Mathur, who is the Group GM at CRIS at the Ministry of Railways, and we really look forward to, listening from him about the breakthrough initiatives at CRIS that he has driven for so long and so many years, and hear about his perspectives on their evolution and how they were able to leverage technology for the betterment of the organization and the general public at large. Now, let me hand you over to Dr. Kapil Dev Singh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nathani, and thank you, Microfocus, for collaborating with Coeus Age in bringing the Digital India Leadership Platform to the industry. It is my honor to now invite our today's guest, Mr. Sharat Mathur, who is the Group General Manager with CRIS, Ministry of Railways. I request him to share his views on a very broad question, that is, what are the priorities that you as a senior technology leader see for Digital India in general and Ministry of Railways in particular? Over to you, Mr. Mathur.
It's a very pertinent question, and it's a question that is exercising our minds, all of us, whether we are part of the government or whether we are citizens. And definitely now there is no doubt that IT, information systems, they are a great force multiplier for the government as well as the private sector and financial sector we have seen. And now increasingly just giving services to our citizens. And as far as railways is concerned, railways is a different sort of a service that we offer to our citizens. As far as railways is concerned, it is a commercial service, and still it is strategic, and therefore right now it is under the purview of the government. So the strategic component is such that it is very difficult to give it to a private agency, but other countries have done it. So there are a number of models that are there, and there is always hope for changing the model for the better and not repeating mistakes that have been made in other countries. So indeed, you'll see that the railway sector is changing and evolving. And all of this is, I'd say, driven by information. In fact, if you see in the general case, the larger the organization, the more important information is. The larger the social structure, the more important information is. And therefore, the role of information technology becomes very, very important. Now, as far as digital transformation in the government is concerned, the primary movement that we see is towards data-driven decision making. So that is something that it is almost now ubiquitous everywhere. And in the last 3-4 years, it has gained importance. And why has it gained that importance? Is that because only in the last few years has it become possible to utilize information technology in a way that you can affect large proportions of your population. It has been, as you know, evolving. It has been facilitated by the easy and universal availability of bandwidth, universal availability of networks, and the reduction in costs of computing equipment, and the consequent creation of facilities within the government. So your state-wide area networks, your state data centers, the applications that have come, your strategic applications that have come, those mission mode applications that had started, mission mode projects. That was the first time that the government took up in a structured way a set of initiatives that would use information technology to directly affect for the better the citizens' life. So All these things take time, and now they have culminated in a situation that you are actually able to use sufficient volumes of data you have, and you can use that data to take decisions for the benefit of the citizens. These are things that have come together in the last few years, but it is not all without its pitfalls, because now we have found that once we start taking, and one more trend that has been there is the actual use of analytics moving out of that. I include artificial intelligence and machine learning and all that in this analytics part, moving out of the realm of the possible into the realm of the practical. Again, all of it helped by the increasing computing power and the ability of putting software systems into place. Machine learning is something that you couldn't do a few years back only because you didn't have that punch, you didn't have the power, computing power, you didn't have the storage to manage those large volumes of data. And of course, you didn't even have the data because you had never processed in those volumes. And now slowly you have that, and when you do that, then when you actually start analyzing the data, you feel that something is not right. And the reason is that the data is now, you find that the data itself is not correct. And it is not correct because of various reasons. Mostly it happens because when you are starting up some application, in the beginning of the application, you are focused on getting it running. So you are not thinking about the correctness of the data, and a lot of data accumulates in your databases. Later on, it is difficult to weed that out. Now, there are tools, as you know, to manage that. Data science has also become a little formalized, and there are ways in which you can clean your data and cleanse your data, and that is where we find the government right now doing that. Suddenly the focus has shifted to data. Focus has shifted from applications and automation of processes to data, because now applications, those processes, they work. But is your data, historical data, correct? That is the assessment you have to make. Because if you make, even with the best algorithms, if you have incorrect data feeding those algorithms, your results will naturally not be accurate, your results won't be correct, and you will not get the correct, you will not be able to make the right decisions, and you will not get the correct output that you need. And that is also true in places like railways. I mean, we have seen that happening when we had sufficient data with us to start predicting the movements of trains. So if you see the direction in which we are moving, definitely we are moving in a direction that we are starting to focus on data and look at the quality of the data and improve the quality of the data. That is a major focus of the government right now. Now, a couple of trends now coming back to railways, and specifically, as I told you, railways is a little different from normal government services. These are not general services that we are offering to the citizens, such as healthcare. We are offering services in a more commercial environment, and we are also competing to a certain extent with commercial means of transport. So we have to do a little bit of balancing. We balance the commercial aspect with the service aspect for the citizens, and then we give it results in some little bit of distortion somewhere, which we have recently started to recognize, and that is that our freight movements, cost of freight movement is high because the cost of our passenger movement is low. And there is an element of, as you know, this is common knowledge, that the cross subsidy between passenger transport by rail versus freight transport by rail, we keep the freight rates a little higher than they should be. And that has, whereas passenger fares have an effect on the average citizen, freight also rates have a major effect on the average citizen, because so many things are carried by rail, primarily bulk goods like coal, cement. Now coal is touching everyone, everyone's lives, because coal is required for power generation, coal is required for steel production, coal is required for aluminium production and things like that. So it touches everybody, and any inefficiency in that supply chain creates problems for everybody, all citizens. Same with, it's not just coal, there are other products also. We carry cement, so construction, and we carry now increasingly different types of commodities. We even carry a lot of food grain. So food grain, although we subsidize that movement of food grain, but even then, any inefficiency in the system creates problems. So efficiencies can be brought into the railway by very efficient movement of information. Actually, if you see historically, railways are very, very information intensive organizations across the world. And they have, since they are very old by modern standards, they are 150 years old or around 170-year-old organizations, most of them. So they have a very efficient method, they used to have for the time, a very efficient method of processing information. They had protocols which were built in, which were manual or using telecom, voice telecom, but they had some very good protocols built in, which would allow you to interchange information efficiently and keep trains running fairly efficiently and regularly. Now we are changing over to modern IT systems, and that changeover should improve our efficiency by a quantum jump. It should give a quantum jump to the efficiency. So what is this information that we are which is so important for railway running? That is the entire information about train operations. So operationally, you have to make sure that you have a good idea of where each train is, because each train is running on a dedicated track, and there are a limited number of tracks. So you have to know where the train is at each point of time. You have to isolate the movement of each train. It's not like a bus where you can just let it to the discretion of the driver, that he can drive the bus on the road and make sure there's no collision. Here, the driver can't do much. If there's another train on the same track, driver doesn't have much to do. You can only brake and probably pray. So here the need for control is much more. So information is very important. Information can now be processed much more efficiently using modern IT systems. So the design and architecture of the IT systems is very important. That is why we have this whole large project going on of providing this unified enterprise architecture for the Indian Railways. That is one of the major applications that is underway. And it is not, you will find, not only restricted to railways. Other ministries such as agriculture, ministries such as health, they have also come up with enterprise architectures. They have given a formal look at those, and then they have found that there are a lot of synergies that they were not using. There were a lot of dissonances that were continuing to continue within the, since they had not taken an overview, effective overview of their information systems from a large enough top-down perspective. And that is now being done. So that is another thing that is coming up in government, and that is to take a whole of government view of the information systems and requirements. When you take a whole of government kind of view or a whole of railways view, you find that there are many tools, techniques that you must use to effectively manage your information, and you begin to take a little bit futuristic view also. And these are all these effective use of analytics, looking at these frontier areas of technology such as blockchain or these distributed ledger systems, and also maybe quantum computing, even at that level, because right now it's not practical. Quantum computers, we don't need them. But when you start looking 10 years down the line, then you begin to think that maybe quantum computing is going to become much more mainstream than it is. What is the response to that? Are we going to do something about it, or are we just going to passively sit back and wait for it to hit us? What are we going to do? Another major trend for that railways has is IoT. Now, IoT is becoming a major transformer for us, for railways, because it is being used extensively in railways abroad. And it is a real force multiplier, and it is a real cost saving instrument. Because when you are running a railway, you have no option but to make sure that you are running a safe railway. And that means you have to put lots of boots on the ground or that kind of thing. I mean, you don't have an option. You can't leave your railway track to chance. If you don't find a better way, you have to put an army of people to do that. And those people are unhappy. Naturally, it is not easy to walk along the track and look at the contention manually and then make sure that you are able to redress that problem. And there's no alternative to that unless you harness cyber-physical systems in a big way. So that has really come to us. Our problem is we have not invested enough in educating our personnel. We have not invested enough, or we have not invested enough time and money in creating a core group of experts who will be able to understand and exploit cyber-physical systems or IoT systems. You can end up spending a lot of money and not get anything out of IoT, and you can spend very little, but with an appropriate IoT system in place, you can get a large dividend. It can reduce your costs tremendously if you do it right. So that is another very, very important trend that I can see. And I think that government, especially entities like railways, have to put in a lot of effort in that, and you'll see that coming in. So products, networks, things like low power vans, we are getting 5G. Is 5G the best for our use cases? It's not very clear. I mean, 5G is not an unbridled benefit. It is not that just by deploying 5G, we will be able to meet our network needs. Again, 5G is something like that you can end up spending a lot of money and not get returns. So it appears to us. While we don't know, we don't have any instances for that. But 5G will definitely be a game changer. Intelligently used, it will be a big asset that you can use. But still, the case for exploring low power vans and exploring a holistic view of IoT is very important. We have burnt our finger, we have made some mistakes on the way, and I'll tell you what sort of mistakes. We have put IoT devices in remote areas, but then we have then put air conditioners for processors, edge processors right there, and then we have also put fiber optic cables right there, and that has pushed up the cost of that whole edge to a very, very high value, and naturally that is not scalable. So we have to look for more cheaper models. So that is another big thing. The third big area is human capital development, or whatever you can call it. But basically, as far as information systems are concerned, it is the imparting of training and knowledge to the employees at their place of work. And that is a very, very exciting area. You can say, again, if done right. You can again waste a lot of money doing it wrong. But what we can see is that with, when you travel now by train, you find a little bit more comfortable than it used to be, cleaner than it used to be, and it's not as stressful as it used to be because you have information on your mobile and you have information on display boards and this and that. So the whole journey, I mean, that experience is better. Of course, it is more crowded than it used to be, and you have you trade that off. So now what happens is that there is so much change. Every day you find that there's a different type of, there's some improvement in your coach, there's some improvement in the train, there's some improvement in the station. All of that change is coming at a cost. So how do you ensure that your employees are able to manage those changes? It requires a lot of education and training and learning on their part. Now you have the means to push that learning to them at their workplaces. You can even give them an augmented reality system which helps them to maintain whatever they are doing. And you can definitely push content onto their mobile phones. I mean, augmented reality may be something which is very, very esoteric right now. But again, when you look 5 years down the line, where will you be? Maybe it will be much more common than it appears right now. So you have to plan for that. But learning and pushing learning down to the workplace, that is one very big trend. And it will become very important if done right in the next few years. So that is another large trend. As I said, when we are talking about IoT, we mentioned networks. So having the ubiquitous connectivity of the right sort across the whole, in our case railways, but across the whole organization. And in case of railways, what happens is that this connectivity you have to give in railway yards, and you have to give even on the wave route between Jaisalmer and Jodhpur. So you need connectivity across that whole thing. So how will you do it? Do you have a plan and a framework into which you can fit your communication systems there? You may not, I mean, it can become very expensive if you are looking for a very high bandwidth, low latency network throughout. You may not need that. What you need is, in some places you need high bandwidth, in some places you can do with low bandwidth, but you need low latency also along with that. You want reliability, you want cost, you need to balance that. So that whole network component is important, and connectivity, and along with that comes, as I told you, the impending 5G, which will maybe supplement and complement this whole network part. So these are some of the trends that I can see. Those common things, analytics, big data and all, they already are they are on us. It's a wave that is crashing on us, and we have to do whatever we can. But as I said, again, training and development, learning and development, that is the key to all this. So that I expect will become a major change, what in Canada change creator in the future.